Wow, okay, now that makes more sense. I got you just.
She just angry.
I got you there.
Wow. Oh, these are hunters. All right, now we're all set.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ashley joining us? I don't know. So.
Good morning, y'all.
Hey, Lincoln.
What's going on, friends?
Lincoln, did you close?
I did last week.
Congratulations.
About damn time.
Yeah.
Thanks.
How does it feel?
It feels like I want to do that 5 times a month. That's what that feels like.
There you go. So get your ass in here. Well, at least you're joining my Zoom.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Ashley just texted me and said she'll be on Zoom in a second. Okay, she's not here. Okay. Hello, Miss Ruth. I think Cam is joining us.
All right. Well, how's everybody doing? Hello, Ruth. Hello, Lingo. How's it going?
It's going.
I'm seeing the mid stock market meaning 600 to 900 really well. Of course, depending on the pocket, the area, and all that kind of stuff.
Range. I've seen a lot of competition. I feel like because there's not as many listings available, so I feel like a lot of people are having on the listings now. Property price, the area, and a lot of competition.
Condition.
Yeah. Do you agree with that?
Yes, especially in the upper echelon from 600 to 900, I think the homes are well cared for. They price correctly to sell. Nothing.
Yeah. I'm also still like
400, 500. Correct. And I don't know if it's me, but I'm also seeing a lot more listings on condos where they're telling you right away if that should have to.
yeah, and I think it needs to stay at FHA.
Yeah.
But the FHA.
Scholars.
Think something.
I can't hear anything. Can y'all hear anything?
I'm having a hard time understanding too. Yeah, it's like staticky and stuff.
Is it because he's far away from the microphone? Can you hear me better?
That's better. I can hear you good now, but I couldn't hear Hunter at all.
I may have to move up or speak up. Is that better?
That's good. Yep.
All right, I'll just speak up a little bit, but what I was, yeah, let me shut these doors while I scream.
Yeah, or move forward a little bit too, in the chair.
Okay, how's it going? You see, I'll be out in an hour. Hey, Ashley.
Maybe move up in the chair.
She on mute.
Okay, now, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
All right, is that better? Oh,
Yes, it's better. We're good.
I can hear you great.
all right, awesome. One of the things that I was about to talk about actually was, what was interesting that I thought was one of my biggest takeaways from Chart Masters as far as from an agent standpoint, not necessarily with the numbers and stuff, but just the secondary market of where some of the people may want to live. So they were saying, you know, maybe the Alpharetta area, the secondary market is plumbing because it's cheaper, but it's a little bit up the road. And then
Right.
the coming secondary market is probably a little bit more north. And I thought that was very interesting to share with clients who maybe get discouraged because they can't qualify for the home they want right now.
Yeah.
But share with them that if you move to one of these areas that's up and coming, you may be able, up and coming, not in. Okay, yeah, no pun intended, but coming is an up and coming area.
Right.
So, you know, if you move somebody somewhere around there, the property value increases. You know, you buy a house for $100,000 and it goes to $500,000 over the course of the next few years. That's another $100,000 you have for a down payment on the next house. So I think framing that to the clients and sharing that, that's a big way for them to continue to move up the ladder as far as home prices are concerned. And kind of use it as a catalyst to then buy the next home and the next home and continue on down that way. So
Yeah.
I thought that was very, very interesting.
Ashley, like, look at my view, guys, just gonna have, go ahead, look at my view over my shoulder,
Yeah,
not gonna rub it in or anything.
Can y'all see me?
there you go.
No, I think that's a great point though, Hunter, and what I really liked from kind of on that same standpoint is the drive until you qualify. I think a lot of people get so zoned in on where exactly they want to live. They don't open their mind to doing something else for a little bit. And it really isn't so bad to live one county over from where you wanted to live for a year instead of just renting for a year. Either way, you're not really getting what you want. So you might as well build the equity and increase your chances on getting to live where you actually want to live for the year instead of just giving a landlord money and increasing their wealth. Increase your own instead.
Yeah, good point.
Or
Well-
maybe you go to an area like that, buy a duplex, 3.5% down FHA, you rent it out to somebody and then your payment's even cheaper.
Yeah.
Well, not to be negative, but it's pretty hard to get a lot of appreciation in a year.
True.
No, I agree. I'm talking over the course of 3, 4, 5 years. I wasn't thinking we're gonna get 20% like we did in 2020, but maybe 20% over the course of 5, 6, 7 years, especially up and coming where they just said they're building that new $1 billion development for the NHL stadium where they're trying to get a NHL team to come here. So if they're building that and coming, they have the Halcyon, you know, going up towards Lake Lanier, like they're just basically bridging the gap of the real estate on the lake to Alpharetta, because that's really the only thing that's in between those two spaces. So if they do build that development, I can see the property values going way up, but 20% in a year is outrageous. I don't think that's gonna happen again, but maybe over the course, like I said, 3, 4, 5.
And you gotta offset the closing costs and things like that too, you know,
Yeah.
for the first purchase.
Yeah, so. Maybe we stick with 5% per year appreciation for the time being, because that's probably a little bit more accurate than
Yeah.
20%, but
A little more
Still-
realistic.
still good over time instead of waiting 5 years to save up money, but you're paying a ton of money in rent to try to.
Or just rent the house after the second year
Yeah,
and move up, then if you're able to.
yeah, as well. So what are you guys seeing in the market other than the 600 to 900 being positive? Anything else? you guys-
Performing better than you would think, despite the interest rates still being about 6.75, I think, around, right?
Yeah, 6.5. And I will say, like, beware of the news online and everything, because this new, headline that just came out. Actually, I'm sure you saw it, the higher credit score buyers are now getting penalized. Have you seen that? Did you guys all see that?
No, what was that?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's the most craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. I mean, what the hell? Sorry, but really?
It's been in effect all year. So I don't know why all of a sudden it's getting these headlines, but it's basically they're saying that FHA buyers are getting like a 1.75% discount. What it really is saying is there's a 1.75% upfront mortgage insurance premium, which then lowers the interest rate a little bit because they're paying upfront and it's rolled into the loan amount. And FHA is a government-backed program for people with lower credit scores to qualify to buy homes. So their interest rates are in turn going to be potentially a little bit lower. That's not the case on all loans. I just
Sure.
locked in someone with an 800 credit score on a condo, which is a little bit higher pricing at 6.5 with little to no discount. And then I had an FHA loan that was locked that's 620 credit score and they're 6.75. So it's really not the case. But
Right.
when they frame it on the headline of higher credit borrowers are gonna get docked, technically, there is a little bit of a fee priced into the interest rate, but it's nothing that is going to be like some crazy payment that they're gonna have to pay a 1% fee on top of the loan amount, on top of the closing costs. It's already been factored into everyone's loans, and then that's not gonna change. So
Right.
without the headline, no one would have even ever known this.
Right.
And I'm almost 100% sure it's been in effect the entire year, so.
Political agenda.
Correct. Well, I mean, whenever something on the news has come out, whether it's from the left or from the right, there's like a reason for it. So clearly, there's a reason why this is coming out right now, because it's been in effect for the whole year. And if there's any other reason that they wanted it out other than for some politics or political jousting, it would have been told at the beginning of the year. So.
Take it with a grain of salt, yeah.
That's with everything. And so I had a client call me today. I locked him in last week, 6.5, and the market went down. So interest rates went up over the past several days. And she's like, hey, I was watching the news this morning and it said the average interest rate is 6.375 and mine's 6.5. Why is that? I'm like, well, they're about 2 weeks behind on all this stuff because they were 6.375 2 weeks ago. Then they went up to like 6.75 and now they're coming back down and we got it locked in at 6.5. So it's all relative and what happens. So I'll just be sure that you're having conversations with all your clients and making sure that they're not letting anything on the TV influence what they think.
Right, then they call rocket mortgages, you get a really low rate and then they'll realize they're paying all this discount points.
Right.
Ton of it.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, with the discount points, I had another one the other day where it was like between $16,000 and $20,000 worth of discount points. And people don't even blink at the table. They don't even realize what they just did. Because I know that in 99% of those scenarios, the lender did not go through that with them. They did not say, hey, this is like your break even point, like Hunter and Matt are going to do. It's like, is it worth it to have those discount points in there? Because if this is the first home you're ever buying, I can almost guarantee you're not going to live there for the next 20 years. So why would you pay $20,000 to $30,000 of discount points? And even if you think you might live there, are you going to refinance at some point in your life? Probably. Will you or maybe your spouse get moved with your job and you have to move even though you really love this house? Maybe. So to me, even if your break even point, you think you might stay there, if it's past a couple years, it's just really the likelihood of you actually benefiting from that is so low that it just doesn't make sense to me to do that. And I always feel like I'm choking over it when I say, and here are the discount points that you pay to lower the interest rate. And I don't really get a lot of, complaints at closing about it, which I find really surprising. I guess they've already seen it at that point, which is good, but I still don't think it's been actually explained to them or they wouldn't be on there. It just doesn't make sense for them to understand what that is and still pay for it.
I think people still would rather do that in in every party they do, or every, person that comes to see their new house, oh, but I got it for 5.75, something like that, They just so hung up on the interest rate.
And they are totally hung up on it, but it sounds harsh, but that's kind of stupid to be willing to pay 20 grand to tell people at parties that your interest rate was low. To me,
Right.
if you're 20 grand to have an 8% interest rate, I'll do that. I don't care what I say at parties, my interest rate is, that's not the value. Value is saving money. And they're not doing that.
They're not doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it all looks good until you look at the disclosure. If you just look at the first page and you see your rate and your monthly payment, it looks great. And then when you look at the cash to close section, it's gonna be way off. Just depends. I mean, if that's what the client wants to do, we're not gonna stop them from doing it, but at the same time, I would never advise someone to do that, especially right now.
Yeah.
If you're comfortable and qualify your monthly payment that you're at, why pay points to buy it down?
Sure.
Exactly.
Unless it's your forever home type thing.
Yeah, but even if it is, I would say that 99.9% of people do not hold on to a loan for 30 years,
No,
no matter who it is. If
correct.
something pops up, they have debt, they want to pay off, they'll do a cash out refinance, put money out of the home to pay off, a kid's college, a car, whatever the case may be, or they'll refinance to a lower interest rate, or they'll move, or they'll, I don't know, whatever it is,
Yeah.
I'd say not many people hold on to a 30-year fixed mortgage for 30 years.
Agreed.
Unless it was someone that bought in 2020 or 2021 that's got 2.75,
Right.
they might do that.
Right.
Other than that, I don't see anybody doing that. So,
Or renting it if they have to move because the interest rate is so good.
right. So,
Well, and too, the other piece that we haven't talked about a ton is people tend to pay off their mortgage quicker than the allotted time frame anyway, even if they never move, even if they never refinance. If they make an extra payment a year, that shaves you off the loan. And so at that point, I mean, maybe if you're paying 10,000 in discount points, you'll have a break even that's, sooner than that, and it makes sense. But these people who are paying 30,000, their break even is really far out. And if they're paying extra on their loan, they might hit that before the break even point anyway.
Correct.
yep, I did one today where the girl was like, well, should I buy it down to 6.375 or 6.25 from 6.5? I'm like, no, because it changes your monthly payment, $25 to get to 6.375, $50 to get to 6.25, and it's gonna cost you $5,000. It's gonna take you 100 months to recoup that investment. And I told her, I'm like, I would be willing to bet that you refinance within 12 months of closing on the house. And you do not want to have that payment limit over your head where you're gonna lose $5,000 if you don't do that. So when you frame it like that, they're like, oh, that makes sense. Okay. I think a lot of people just don't understand what they're doing, especially the first time buyers.
Yeah.
Because I have my cousins buying a house right now and they're closing in May. And they're trying to stay under a certain monthly payment, but I'm like, hey, we can get you that monthly payment in a year or a couple months, and you're gonna have $8,000 sitting, in the account that you didn't spend. So let's say your payment's $100 more, well, you have 80 months worth of a reserve account to get to your monthly payment that you're trying to stay around. If it's $100 more expensive, just because the heat of the market, you had to put in an offer over asking price to get the house that you wanted,
Right.
or you're getting into it now. Then when you can refinance in the future, you'll then have that closer to, if not lower than that monthly payment that you want. You may just have to sacrifice for 6 months to make sure that you can obtain the property you want.
Yeah.
So just sometimes a tough conversation, but some people got to hear it to be like, hey, if you want to buy the house now, this is kind of what we're going to do, unless you want to come out of pocket, X thousand more dollars to get where you want to be. So,
Yeah. Agreed.
I got another question for you, Ashley, on a different note. I've got a listing coming up. And it was willed to the daughters. What do we need? What do you need as an attorney to have it closed? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So you know what I'm saying? I was like, the girls have it, still listed in her name, it was willed to them. What do I need to prove to you that they can sell it?
So really, whether or not they can sell it individually depends on where they are in the process. And so, do you know if the will's been probated yet?
I do not.
Okay, so that's the first question. And is it the mom who owned it and
Yes.
died? Okay, when did she die?
Almost a year ago.
Okay, so it's definitely gonna have to be probated. So step one is make sure that they've probated the will. If they haven't, Phil Erickson in our Duluth office is a probate attorney. And so I can send you his contact if they haven't started working with someone. He can help with that. But basically, if the will says that the daughters get everything, or if the will says that the daughters get 123 Cherry Street, what we'll have to do is one of two things, and it depends on how they want to sell it. So right now, if it's still titled in mom's name, then mom's estate is the owner. It doesn't matter what the will says. They have to actually go through the steps of effectuating the will, or the estate can sell it. And so if what the will says is my daughters get everything, then we would have the estate be our seller, and whoever is the executor, if they're both executors, great. The executors of the estate would sell, proceeds would go to the estate, and then the executors would distribute it to the daughters because they get everything. If what the will says is my daughters get 123 Cherry Street, then we can either have the executor deed the property to the daughters and the daughters individually sell it, or the daughters can sign deeds to the estate and the estate be the seller, the estate get the money, and it's, distributed per the will. So it just kind of depends on how they want to sell it. But for them to sell it individually, the will would have to say that they get 123 Cherry Street. Now, if it doesn't say that, I can ask the title insurance company if we can still go ahead and deed it to them. I think part of that will depend on who the executor is, but we could ask. But definitely if it says they get 123 Cherry Street, then we can do that. But basically, in order for you to proceed, the will needs to be probated. And then once it is, we need four things. We need the will itself, the petition to probate, the order probating, and letters testamentary. Those are the four documents we'll need. And
Can you repeat that, Ashley?
What?
Can you repeat those four things?
Yeah, of course. So the will. So kind of four easy things: will, petition, order, letters. So the
Okay.
actual last will and testament. Then the petition to probate the estate, the order probating in solemn form, and then the letters testamentary. That's who names the executor. And if they have letters testamentary, it's been probated. That doesn't get issued until the endpoint that we need, at least. So if they've got that, they should be good. But what we look for in the will, because sometimes what happens is a will say, we leave 123 Cherry Street to my nephew and the rest of my estate goes to my daughters. If that's the case, then we're going to need the nephew to sign a deed, allowing the daughters to sell as executors.
How long does the probate process take if they have not done it?
It's kind of like asking how long is a piece of string. It really depends. So where is it being probated? How backed up are the courts right now? How complex is the estate? I think I've seen it pre-COVID. I've seen it done in a number of weeks if it's relatively simple and the court's not super backed up. I don't know that they've been able to work through the backlog that COVID created yet. So I might budget, a couple months, but I think if they haven't started, they should get a probate attorney and they should ask that question, because that attorney will be really familiar with how, backlogged that particular county is. Because I've also heard of like outlying counties taking, 6 months just because they don't have the resources to move through that backlog very quickly.
Okay.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I learned this on Friday. We can lend on houses that have come out of probate, but obviously not while they're going through probate. I had someone have a scheme. So once they come out of probate, we can lend on that property, but obviously while they're still determining who's gonna get the property and all that stuff, it can't be lent on because they can't sell it because there's not a technical, owner. Yeah.
Right.
Ashley, is that correct?
Yes, for the most part, there is an exception. I think most lenders can still lend on it so long as there's not like any sort of open issue with the property. So like if you've got a house where mom died 20 years ago and the will, clearly leaves it to the daughters, we can do some different paperwork to say you don't have to actually go through probate at all. And I think that's still fine. I haven't had any issues with lenders, but I think if you're in the middle of probate, you're not going to be able to really do anything with the property. So you're not going to refinance it because you don't really know where the property stands. You're not going to be able to sell it because there's, an open case of some form. And to Hunter's point, we don't really know who has authority to do what. Because what the probate process essentially boils down to is like court verification of the will. So you can hand me a will and I can look at it and I can say, yeah, that absolutely leaves it to daughter one. But what happens if that will is fraudulent? Right? So the court has to go in and agree, like, yes, this is the last will and testament of this person. This is the document that we're going to use to determine what to do with everything. And until a court does that, it doesn't mean a whole lot. Again, unless it's been a really, really long time. And the theory behind that is if it's a newer death, some heirs might not even know that this person has died. And so if you've got, like I think the most common heir is going to be the child, the estranged child, or maybe the child that is not part of like you've got a husband and wife and the husband's got some other child that nobody else knows about. Well, they would take heir of him because it's his child, but the other kids might not know about it. So you have to give those heirs time to come out and challenge the will, essentially. And so if it's been 20 years and people will sign off saying, we've known this person for 20 years, we know they don't have any other kids. And then all the kids that are known that are alive sign off on it, then the risk for the title insurance company to be able to issue a title insurance policy is very low. Because what are the chances someone's coming out of the woodwork in 20 years? Someone coming out of the woodwork after 2 years, totally plausible.
Gotcha.
So that's
Nice.
Yep. So another kind of thing that I wanted to touch on for you guys, that's really a good touch for your clients right now, is tax assessments are going to start coming out if they haven't already. April is kind of the time when these assessments start coming out. Depending on the county, they'll come out now through like the beginning of summer. And the reason I think it's a good touch for you guys is because what a tax assessment is it's not the actual tax bill. It's the value that the county, essentially the county is saying, this is the value that we've assessed the property at. This is the value we're going to use to base your tax bills off of. And that gives people just a couple months to actually go in and dispute those taxes. So you can, I would say, call clients and say, hey, just wanted to let you know your tax assessment is going to be coming in the mail over the next month or so. It's not a tax bill, but look at it, compare it to last year's tax bill. And if you think that value is significantly different, then you can appeal those taxes or dispute those taxes and maybe get your tax bill reduced. But I get a lot of questions about that. No, the assessment is probably going to go to whoever owned it on January 1st. So it's a good touch for both your buyers and your sellers to say, hey, sellers, FYI, you might get this in the mail. If you do, remember at the closing, the attorney most likely told you that you still could get some tax information in the mail because counties don't update things quickly. So don't worry, this is not a bill. If you want to, pop it in the mail, send it to the buyer, great. If not, that's fine. You don't need to do anything with it. And that'll be, it'll help you avoid those panicked phone calls. Because I know y'all get the panicked phone calls before I get the panicked phone calls of saying, why is this tax information still in my name? I sold it 3 months ago. You did, but you still owned it on January 1st.
Right.
So it's a good way for you guys to reach out and have contact, but also provide value. Good excuse to talk to your people.
Points, thank you.
I agree. What are you guys hearing from people that are potentially looking to sell their home soon? Do you guys think there's gonna be more listings coming on the market here over the summer because school's ending?
Question.
Anybody in my pipeline want the list right now? I got all buyers.
I got 2 potential listings coming up. And they're moving into, I guess they did originally what you guys were talking about. They bought in an area, that they could afford, say 4 years ago, and now they're gonna be moving into a better area, you know, and they got everything situated, the money, the credit and all that. So that's the situation for those two.
Ashley, have you seen or heard anything from, I guess, different agents in the office at closings about potential, new inventory?
About what?
About potential new inventory? I feel like that's really one of the tough things we're dealing with right now is just the low inventory in certain price points where first-time home buyers are, or maybe, repeat home buyers who just had their first or second child and they're trying to buy a bigger home for their family. I feel like that's kind of the stringent, constricted price points right now. Would you not agree?
Yeah, I haven't heard a whole lot of positive commentary about upcoming listings. I think it's been kind of a struggle across the board. And I think a huge chunk of that problem are people who, quite frankly, are like me, like the interest rate I have on my house, whenever we move, which eventually we will move, I'm not selling it because when am I ever going to get an interest rate below 3 again? It's like free money. So I think that's really contributing to the problem, more so than like fear of moving. People are moving. They're just not letting go of their old house that they, either bought or refinanced when interest rates were essentially free money. And I think that's kind of true across the board. So that to me is what I'm hearing the most as far as listings go. But I'm seeing a lot. I think the biggest area that I'm seeing a lot of both like listings and, purchases go through on is the Alpharetta area. So that's interesting since we're, obviously in Peachtree Corners and right next to Norcross, that the number one address I'm seeing is Alpharetta, whether that kind of bleeds Johns Creek or Milton direction. That seems to be a hot spot right now.
I think that's because that's where the most new construction in the area is going on. I think that has anything to do with it.
I think part of it, but that new $1 billion thing that they're like the hockey arena, I forget what it's called, but that's going right kind of near where we were on Friday, right up the road from there. That's really not even Alpharetta. I think that's really coming technically, maybe Swanee, but I think it's coming.
It is, it's for site, it's been coming, yeah.
Yeah. But there's a lot popping up around that area. Like I know in Johns Creek, the old State Farm building, they're turning that into, I think it's called the Medley or Medlock something. But that's going to be like a multi-use type deal. And Halcyon is there. Obviously, we've got Avalon. So I think there's that. And I think part of what's contributing to that being such a hot spot is for a couple months now, I've been saying that the hottest price range is that like 6 to 9 region instead of the below 5. And I think a lot of the homes in Alpharetta fall in that price range. And I think a lot of people who live in Alpharetta are buying their second home. So that all jives and I think is contributing to that. But I guess a takeaway from that is if that's a hot spot that people are wanting to move to and people who can afford that like 6 to 9 range where there is competition might be a good area to farm since there's a lot of activity there.
Yeah. I agree. I'm sure there's probably gonna be a ton of new developments up and coming too with that, new space. I know it's mixed use, but there'll probably be some neighborhoods and homes that get put in around that area too. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, talking to people who own at Halcyon is going to be a huge thing because those are already at price point. But as soon as that $1 billion development gets built, their property value, I'm assuming, is going to skyrocket because they're going to be like a golf cart ride away because Halcyon is like right down the road from that. Maybe not a golf cart, but they're going to be very, very close. So that might be a good area to farm too is, all those townhomes that are like part of Halcyon. It's, hey, your property value is gonna skyrocket. Look at this new development coming out. And when it does, remember the nice agent who told you to hang on to it for a year, because sometimes providing value that's not sell it right now goes a long way in trust building. uh, clients, you know, or they don't need to sell right this very second. And for someone, because I think a lot of people think, oh, agents, they're just telling me this because they want to sell, 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 sell. And it kind of catches them off guard to say, yeah,
Right.
eventually sell, but I think right now it's good for you to wait. And then you build that trust. And when they do sell, that's great because, you know, they trust you now because you did something that benefited them over benefiting you in that moment.
Absolutely, you're honest and you know the market.
Yeah.
It
Yeah, and
shows.
it too, by telling them about the development, you look like you're in the know and providing them value and on their side in an honest way.
Absolutely. So where's this new hockey arena gonna be at? Up 141 past 400 or
Yeah, I think it's off of exit 13, so Halcyon's
like
12.
Farland or something? Is that
Yeah, the
what
one
that
past McFarland.
is?
The
Fish
new
Park?
is on like Ronald Reagan and Union something.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure it's the one right past
Right.
Halcyon. So like, I think you're gonna have to take the highway or exit it,
yeah.
but it's right up there, yeah. And they bought like 100 acres of
So
land.
they're building it to attract an NHL franchise or team.
Correct.
Nothing has been
Nothing
said
says,
yet.
I
Yeah,
think they're trying to do like an expansion team in the NHL, trying to get them to come here. And build that, you know, billion and a half mixed use development, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean-
Condos, apartments,
sure.
shops,
The Gladiators have survived all these years.
yeah. Worst case, they'll just stick them there probably,
Sure,
you know?
Correct.
I feel like that's probably their fallback plan, but I would think that they'll definitely get a hockey team at some point. I don't know what happened. Obviously, the pressures, but.
A
we'll see.
good concert venue too, because looking at pictures, they can like pack it out for concerts. But if y'all have been reading about it, like what hockey team is coming, there's been so much drama with that. It's been like,
Really?
and like different hockey teams posting like really salty things on Twitter about it. Because I guess there was supposed to be a hockey thing at North Point Mall, North Point, maybe Perimeter Mall, one of the two.
It
And
was
now
North Main. They were trying to find, I was reading something, they were trying to figure out how they can get 100 acres of land at North Point Mall, and they couldn't figure out how to get that amount of land with all the developments there. So they moved it to the new spot, and they're gonna redo North Point Mall and like revamp it to look like the Avalon. But they're moving this facility up north, which I think is good, because the traffic and outbred by North Point Mall would just be nuts if there's a sports team.
Oh my
there.
gosh.
It's already nuts,
Sure.
so.
Yeah. And room on McGinnis once you cross over 141, because I think a lot of people are going to get on McGinnis Ferry. I think they've already started taking some of the land to widen that road. So the capacity is a little bit better in that direction. Plus there's, you know, just more room in general out that way.
Right.
So it makes a lot of sense, but it'll be good for us who are kind of around that area. Like I'm in Johns Creek. I'm like 10 minutes from Halcyon, so I'm tickled to death.
Nice.
At intersection right there at 12, I don't know, forever. And they've got the whole thing torn up. It's been like that for over a year.
Really?
Yes, like everything else around here, they're working on every road all at the same time.
Right. I agree.
It gets really disgusting if you have somewhere to go.
She's 12, and Wayne is 11, I think, right?
We're at 11, Avalon's 10, Halcyon's 12.
Oh, house is 12, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, that's 12's McFarland.
So what they're saying, I was reading about it here, says that they are gonna extend Ronald Reagan, widen McGinnis Ferry, and build a new exit ramp on 400 for it.
There we go. I think they're already working on the new exit, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, it is exit 12 that they're working on.
Yeah, they've been working on extending Ronald Reagan for a while now. Because
Yeah.
there, the collection, it stopped. So they're working on extending that. Because like it was there and then there was a break and then more, which so it's kind of stupid that it wasn't already connected. So I think they're fixing that.
Gotcha.
It'll help with traffic too.
That's much needed.
Much needed there, gosh.
Anybody else got anything about what you're seeing in the market? Any questions we can answer from a loan or title standpoint?
This past weekend and last week, in the 300 range, I've seen houses that have been on the market for 18, 20, 30 days. Now all of a sudden have multiple offers on them and you decide to go look at them. It's the weirdest shit.
It's just spring, it gets warm out and people realize that the interest rates are gonna stay. Actually gotten better from the 7.25 that we saw in November, you know. So I think people are actually just taking action.
When I looked and I was like, okay, we're gonna check out these 6 houses, and then the morning of, 3 of them that have been on the market for 90 days, are like, oh, we've got multiple offers, highest and best value, and I'm like,
And they're realizing
that's
that's
any activity in 3 months, and now all of a sudden, when I wanna go see it, I feel like a personal vendetta against me.
Do you think that they're just telling you that just so you can put it out?
I told them, I said, then we're not gonna show it, they said, okay, great, they didn't, you know, I said, we're not ready to compete yet, you know, my buyers weren't ready to compete yet, they don't have the cash. So, we were kind of like, not looking for a deal, but looking to give the people, sellers what they wanted. You know, we had one under contract that the price came in low, and now they've remarketed it with not FHA eligible. So,
it's hard to believe there's houses for 300,000 out there. Anyways,
it's in Conyers, I mean, it's a
Yeah.
condo out there that are
True.
actually decent condition.
again, so, you know, do the drive or you can qualify, you know? If, unless they want to stay there, which is cool too.
Yeah, that's one of the best things I heard at Chartmasters, the drive to see qualify.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I think a lot of people just may have to hear that because it's more realistic than thinking you're gonna find something for 300,000 that you like in Alpharetta, Johns Creek, Roswell.
Oh my
any of those
gosh.
Surrounding areas, it's not happening.
1-bedroom condo,
Yeah.
Christian Corners.
Yeah.
You all have the bedroom just for that.
Excuse me. I don't know how to raise my hand, but y'all have that new program where you're working with buyers that don't have citizenship, is that correct?
So it'll be coming out in May. It is not rolled out yet, but we will have that. Yes, it's called an ITIN product, so it's a tax ID number, and they don't have to have social security, they don't have to have credit, and they do not have to have US citizenship.
And why is that? I mean, what is the advantage of us having that type of a buyer? Any?
So I would say for you, I don't think there's any like advantage, but the reason why we're bringing the product to the market is because I feel like a lot of the, you know, Hispanic agents in here that are working in the bilingual center, that's a product that they all must have because they have a lot of clients that fall into that category. So we are trying to make sure that we can cater to all the agents that are in the office. And I think that was a big product that we've been pushing, just to be able to have eligible in case we have somebody that wants to try to qualify for it. So I don't know if there's technically an advantage for you to go out and look for somebody that falls into that category. But if you do have somebody that's in that category now, instead of us saying, we don't have the ability to do that, now we will have at least a way to create a game plan for them if they can't qualify up front, but we may have something to help them qualify.
Yeah, and I'll speak on behalf, and not only Hispanics, but any foreign
Yeah.
person, Indian, Ukrainian,
Yeah.
Asian, whatever.
Well,
He's been, well, yeah, let me say this, they've been here a long time, say 10, 15, 20 years. And they have businesses and they pay taxes under that tax ID, okay? So they're illegal because there's no way for them, there's no path in immigration to become legal. However, they all around us, owning businesses, paying taxes. So contributing in a way, right? The only thing is they don't have a piece of paper that says they're legal, but they want to buy a house. So this is a path for them to buy their house after been here 10, 15 years and paying taxes and contributing. That's
Yeah,
all
a lot
that
of
is.
you are doing everything the right way. It just takes a long time for them to get citizenship, from what I've heard as well. So, and I've heard it's a nightmare. So this is just something where they can, you know, buy a house, especially like you said, they've run a business, they've paid taxes, like they should have the ability to do so. So if they can buy a house, then they can gain citizenship
So
afterwards too.
it's gonna be okay for an illegal, someone that's here illegally to buy a house now?
It's been,
not them
it's
here.
been okay for a long time.
I don't know if that's technically the term that is illegal, because they have they're paying taxes, they have a tax ID. I don't want
Right.
to get into the whole citizenship thing, because I have no idea how that works.
Right,
I don't
right.
wanna- I don't want to misspeak.
I-
I just know that they don't have to have, they don't have to have a social security number. So I
Well,
don't know if that
Can
makes-
an American do it without just saying, I don't want to use my social security number? Can I use it if I don't want to use my social?
that I don't know. I'm sure that you may be able to, but if you were, the interest rate probably would be higher and.
Oh, you gotta put a lot more down
Yeah,
payment,
more money.
and the interest
Yeah.
rate is 3 points, 4 points higher.
But if you do that same program, so they're gonna have a higher interest rate, and a lot more money down necessary
Yeah.
for that, okay.
Yeah,
It's just giving them the ability to qualify, them
Yeah.
being someone that doesn't have social security.
Yeah, that, okay with
It's
that.
it's a 50% down typically, and like I said, the rates are 3 to 4 points higher. And they're here anyway, so might as well.
Yeah, Ruth, you got a question?
no, I was just gonna tell you that my listing in Peachtree Corners over on Creekstone, the buyer has one of those loans. We were supposed to close last Friday. We didn't. Now they're saying we might close in a week, but they're out of their 8 days. And my seller is not happy. These people, I met them, they're a charming couple, they're Chinese. They don't even have a job in this country. Their job is in China.
Also,
And-
foreign investors, in that case.
No, they're planning to move in the house. They want to live in America, but so they're gonna buy a house, but they don't, all their assets. That was one of the problems with that loan, is you have to transfer the assets a little bit at a time, at least from China, because you can't take out a lot of money out of China at once. So
I don't like it.
that's the problem, and I'm feeling very uncomfortable about it, and so is my seller.
Sure, yeah, your case is a little different than the average other foreign person that's been living here 15 years or so, and they have a tax ID and they'll be paying taxes on it and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's a different
Yeah,
deal.
like- Now in a rented condo, but I don't know, I'm very uncomfortable, because if I have,
Yeah,
I'm not gonna be happy. But one thing about it, which was interesting, I've got it listed at 475. And yesterday they sent me a copy of some stuff from the lender. The appraisal came in at 520. Made me feel terrible. I'm not gonna tell my seller that. I don't know.
Well, that's good news if for whatever reason you don't close the loan.
Exactly.
Say, hey, we can
They
relist
just-
it and get this earnest money plus 50,000 more dollars.
exactly. That and
Sorry for the 2-week delay.
maybe it's time to consider a backup offer so you could be already on the contract, primary.
Offer and no, pretty much cash, but we lost him because it's taken so long. He said he had to buy something, so he went somewhere else.
Sure, yeah. But these tax ID programs do take a long time to underwrite. Because, even though it's less risk on the loan itself, they're examining the person,
Yeah, more in depth.
yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes the underwriting is not in town. They say, oh, it's state and, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
I'll
I'll
let you guys-
get more info when we have that product, but we just don't have it yet.
I
I
know-
asked Stanley for Chinoa. Oh, go ahead, Ruth, sorry.
No, I was just saying, I inquired about whether you all could do it, and you couldn't.
Yeah, not yet. They said May. They said sometime in Q2 and they said May, so we'll see if that happens. But they said before the end of June, absolutely, they're trying for May. And then Chinoa and Click to Close, that's supposed to come in May as well. So 2 down payment assistance programs.
Yeah,
So, and those, just for your information, if you've done any of them before, Ashley can, probably chime in on this as well. But it's a longer closing time frame because they have their own underwriting guidelines as well. So once we're under it and we're cleared to close, then we ship off the loan essentially to the down payment assistance entity. And they underwrite the loan from there, and they may request additional conditions from the client that we don't even request in order to underwrite the loan, because it's technically a second loan. And it's some of them are forgivable after 5 or 7 years if you live in the property that long and you don't miss a payment.
Yeah.
But some of them do have to be repaid, and a lot of people don't understand that. So sometimes they're in a second lien position and it's another mortgage on top of the, first mortgage.
Right.
So Ashley, you can touch on that, but it just takes a little bit longer for that to close, so.
It definitely takes a lot longer. I would say typically we say a closing is 30 days. Most of these companies that they can't do it in the 30 days. I would say budget at least 45 for something with a down payment assistance for the exact reason Hunter said. And it's not like you can pick up the phone and call a Hunter equivalent with these, down payment assistance
Right.
because it is like another company processing. It's not Shelter giving down payment assistance and processing a second loan. It's a different lender that's handling the underwriting for that. And basically they'll let you know when they're ready, and that's when you can close. There is no picking up the phone, talking them through it, having someone jump on it immediately, kind of like y'all are spoiled with Hunter and Matt, because of course they'll do that, but you just sort of get what you get with these programs. And, if you have someone who needs it, it's a great tool to have, but I don't know that it's something that I would suggest people use unless they absolutely need it. Because again, I promise you, nobody understands that it's a second mortgage. Because every time I have a seller who has this kind of down payment assistance program and we call them, they tell us there's one mortgage, we see 2 on title. They're shocked. They're like, no, I only had 1. They think it's a complete gift and it's free money, and it's not. Like, it can be forgiven, but with
Right.
certain, it's not that all of them, first off, not all of them are even up for a forgiveness program, but ones that are, you have to meet certain standards and conditions for it to actually be forgiven at some point in time. And a lot of that condition is staying in the property for a certain amount of time. So the few people that the forgiveness situation don't understand the length of time. They think, okay, so far I've made all my payments on time. That's all I got to do. We'll move on. But I think for most of them, I think the shortest period of time you have to stay in the house that I've heard is 5 years. I think some of them are 7, but you have to actually live in the house, has to be your primary residence, and you have to make all the payments on your first mortgage on time. But even if it is forgiven, it still is a recorded security deed. So if they've done everything right and it has been forgiven, then when we order the payoff, what we get as a payoff is notice that it's been forgiven and no money is owed on it, which is fine, but that doesn't mean we can just take the seller's word for it that it's been forgiven and not reach out to the company holding the mortgage. So that's a good thing to understand for your seller as well. I think that's a really hard thing for you guys to kind of get in front of. I think that's just one of those things that if it comes up in the closing process, you'll just deal with it then. Because again, most of these people who have them don't understand that it's a second mortgage or a gift. And if you were a forgivable loan, and if you were to ask them, hey, did you happen to have a down payment assistance program? They probably don't remember. They're probably going to tell you no, or I don't know what that is, even if they have one. I don't know how you get ahead of it, but if a closing attorney calls and they're like, hey, looks like there's a down payment assistance program, we need the information for that mortgage, at least you guys will be armed with the information on kind of how that works. And certainly you can call me, call Hunter about it, but just know that it'll probably be something that will be a surprise for you guys at closing because nobody remembers it exists and we don't know till we pull title.
And I would also say that as much as we want to help people get into homes and establish like the dream of homeownership, there are a lot of things that I think are a little bit skeptical. If someone is buying a $300,000 property with 3.5% down and they have, $1,000, $2,000 in their account trying to buy a home, that doesn't necessarily make me super comfortable that they're going to be able to make their payments on time for the life of the loan. So the last thing I want to do is get someone down payment assistance. Now they have 2 mortgages and they get foreclosed on. That's just a nightmare waiting to happen. So it's like, I want to make sure I have a conversation with people like, hey, this is something we can do for you, but there is a reason why we're utilizing the down payment assistance. Are you comfortable moving forward with this, that you can, maintain and make these monthly payments? Because, if they're trying to buy a house, they're going through the process, but don't have the funds to buy the house, that may lead me to believe that they may, not be able to make the monthly payments.
And they come with a higher interest rate too,
They do.
so.
Well, so that makes sense. The riskier typically, the higher the rate.
No, right, yeah, definitely. I'm just saying, another thing,
Yep.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming. Ashley, enjoy the beach, have fun.
Thank you. I will be back on Thursday. So I'll enjoy my last couple days.
Awesome. We'll have a
Have a
good
good time.
time. Y'all call us if you need anything. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you guys, spending some time with us on Monday morning.
all right, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Y'all have-
Thank you. It's not so I drink so much water and I'm like, about to eat my head.
Like that last 5 minutes of awkward.
Yeah.
This goes back.
Oh, water.